Hey, hello everyone. Welcome back to How to Train Your Gavin. Today I'm doing another incredible In Conversation with episode, and I'm joined by the writer and illustrator duo who are about to take over the world, Kiran Millwood Hargrave and Tom de Freston. Yay! Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Yay! Do you guys want to introduce yourselves to the audience before we get started?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Kiran Millwood Hargrave, and I have written 7 books now for middle grade, young adult, and adult audiences. But this is my first ever collaboration with my husband illustrating, so I'm very excited.
And hi, I'm Tom de Freston, and I'm an artist and writer. But this is my Julian and the Shark is my illustration debut, so it's full of nerves and excitement as it goes out into the world.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for people to read this, to see this. Like, you guys have made magic together. It's going to be something that I think a lot of people are going to be reading for a very, very long time and thinking about. There's just so much to unpack, and I hope we can get through as much as we can today, because I know I'm excited to delve into it as well. But we are here to talk about Julia and the Shark, which comes out on September 2nd, I believe. That's the release date.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So I have all of the purchase links in the description box. So if anybody watching would like to pre-order a copy, oh yeah, you've got a finished copy there. I only have my proof copy here. So that's what it looks like. That gorgeous, gorgeous cover, illustrated by Tom de Freston, of course. The end papers as well. Oh
Very
my
nice.
gosh.
So, and this is my favorite bit. So there's tracing paper at various important parts through the book.
Oh my god. Literally, it's the holy grail of middle grade. It literally
I love it. I also love how you thought Tom was reaching for the, like, he's so well trained.
Yeah, I was like, oh my
he's
gosh,
actually just reaching for his coffee.
Sorry.
I actually have more respect that you got that, to be fair. Yeah, so I mean, this conversation is going to be spoiler free, and no worries to anyone who hasn't yet read it. Hopefully we can get you excited to go out and pick it up yourself, pre-order it, buy it, all of the good stuff. But also in the description box, I have links to Kiran's and Tom's social medias, and if anyone wants to give them a follow, please do so. That would be awesome. And yeah, are you guys ready for the random icebreaker round that I just did not prepare you for at all?
Oh,
Yeah, I love these things.
I'm excited.
Oh, good. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 questions that might get you thinking, but the rest of them I would say are quite fun. All good.
Okay.
So firstly is, what's something you both love doing together, but alternatively, what is something that one of you love that the other one hates? It could be anything. Anything at all.
We love like going on walks and stuff, but I love wild swimming, and Tom
I'm a wimp.
is a wimp.
I get cold very easily.
So Tom doesn't have the seal like physique that I possess, so he is a bit less. Wherever we go, I will always, if there's water, jump in to whatever it is, any temperature, and Tom will sometimes wade in up to his ankles, but
Maybe.
Yeah.
At a push. What do I like that you don't? Playing sport, maybe?
Sports. We had a big
Sports.
argument once on holiday. Tom was like, "We never do activities on holiday," and I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Rugby." I was like, "Let's go on holiday together and play rugby."
I mean, yeah, it's a strange sport to pick. I mean, maybe swimming.
Yeah, see? So yeah, there we go.
It sounds like you're a bit of a mermaid then, Kiran, and yeah, that's fish to water. What is a movie you could both watch over and over again and never get tired of? And is the one that one of you hates and the other one loves? Trying to get you guys to fight.
Ooh. What about Up?
Oh, Up's a really good one. Up or Midsummer.
Or Midsummer.
That's like the 2 aspects of our personality.
Actually, Midsummer, without doubt.
Yeah, Midsummer. I think Up or Midsummer is a really good answer, because that's kind of what that describes us, I think, as a couple.
It's so like they are polar opposites, so like you can't get any different.
Horror and cute grief.
Yeah, horror and cute grief. There we go. It's a full spectrum. And then a film Tom loves that I hate. What's that Ring Cycle one?
Ring Cycle.
You know, the art film.
Oh, the Craymaster Cycle.
Oh, load of tosh. And what do I love that you hate? Oh, any rubbish horror film. I watch, like, my bar is very low. I'll watch anything with a jump scare in it. And Tom, I often buy them on Tom's Amazon account as well.
That's true.
I love that. Some really rubbish horror films are like so bad they're good, kind of
Yeah.
almost. Like there was one called Camp Blood, I think I watched,
Oh, I
and
haven't
it
seen
was, oh my gosh, you should. You can tell it was filmed on a low budget, and in the end, the main character runs over the killer, but then the killer ends up in the back seat, and it's like, how did that happen? Like, it's not a supernatural film. It's like I don't understand how that happened, and it threw me. It completely threw me. But some of
Wow.
the worst, I know, right? Maybe inspiration for your next collaboration. Maybe who
I
knows?
don't think we'd get away with that level of plot hole with our editor, to be honest. Rachel will be
Well,
right on that.
well, that's a good editor. Is there somewhere in the world you've never been before that you'd absolutely love to visit?
Ooh, loads of places.
Where was yours? I've got one.
Go on, you do yours.
Mine would be the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. It's this amazing art gallery. And also just St. Petersburg looks like just the most incredible, mad architecturally, like the whole of Russia really fascinates me as well. Scares me a little as well, but it really fascinates me as a place, and I've never been there. So
And couldn't
Lots
you,
of beautiful places.
is that on the Trans-Siberian Express?
yeah.
Yes, we could get that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you could. Say,
How
I've
are you
just
gonna
booked
go
your
to?
next holiday.
That's the next one,
that was-
exactly.
I'll tag along. I'll be the third wheel.
Yeah, sure.
Just hide me in the suitcase. It's all good. I'll fit.
You're taller than both of us put together. Like it wouldn't work.
Very true. What is the most, right, you don't have to answer this one, but what is the most embarrassing thing you've ever done? It can be in an event, it can be something that happened in your, I don't know, anything at all. You see, Kiran, you're laughing.
I'm trying to think of
Is this
PG.
is this a children's?
I mean,
a children's
well,
picture?
I'm an adult booktuber, and a lot of my audience is adults.
I can't say the thing I was going to say anyway. I think I don't want
You
to
can
expose
tell me after if you
It's a
want.
safe
I'll tell
space.
you. I'll tell you after.
Yeah.
What's your?
Oh, I'm going blank. I feel like I've got so many.
Oh, Tom. Recently, this isn't probably the most embarrassing thing, but you recently got into someone's car in a supermarket.
That is true. I thought it was our car, so I got in with the shopping and sat down, and then looked across at this woman who looked quite rightfully like terrified. And so I just quietly, I was like, "I'm really sorry," and just quietly backed out.
Happens to the best of us.
Once at a at a school event, it's quite difficult when you're an adult. Like, I don't know how teachers do it. Like when you're an adult in a school, like it's quite difficult to sometimes adjust yourself. And I remember someone said something, a child called, I was getting to make their own islands, and a child called their island Pen Island.
I'm not getting it.
And write it down. And I would literally was just like, oh, you stupid thing. And it was like this 8-year-old just looking at me like, what?
I just got that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was bad.
My God.
Clever.
I can imagine. Yeah, very clever. And it took me a while.
It wasn't intentional, Tom.
Oh, it wasn't intentional.
It was an 8-year-old. If it was like a 10-year-old.
I have just remembered quickly that when I was telling your grandparents.
Quick.
I had to learn, I couldn't play the trumpet, but I'd been playing it for years. And I had to turn up at this concert in front of a fairly large audience. And I came on stage and the music teacher counted me in. It was like 1, 2, 3, ready for me to play. I didn't know what I was doing, so I just didn't play. And then he came up and was like, I'll just count you in again. So he just counted me in again. I still just didn't play. And he just thought I was nervous, so he quietly escorted me off the stage.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's rather mortifying. Like almost like calling a lie, almost.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, I could never compare to those moments. I'm sure one day I can let you guys know my most embarrassing thing. I can't think of anything. I'm like you, Tom. Like as soon as somebody asks me something like that, my mind will just go blank straight away. And this is why I didn't prepare you guys. Like this is genuine, honest, raw. I love it.
It's very raw.
Last couple of icebreakers then. What were you both like when you were Julia's age?
Okay, so I was basically Julia. Like maybe a bit more gregarious, like a bit more outgoing. But very sort of attentive to the world around me, quite precocious, chubby, like quite happy in my skin, but also always wondering, you know, what are people thinking about me? So yeah, quite similar to Julia, really.
I was, yeah, I lived in Devon with my mum and sisters, so by the coast.
Tell the berries story.
And I was often, I suppose I was quite introverted. I was like kind of in my own world. So I used to play lots of games, like repetitive games. I used to play this game of berries where I'd collect up 64 of them, name all of them, then race them in pairs. The winner would go through to the next round, and it would go down obviously till you had a final. And then that one would get saved on the mantelpiece out for weeks. So it would gradually kind of you'd have this like row of slowly rotting winners.
Oh no.
And that was, I used to just play make-believe games and draw lots of islands with strange creatures. I was a bit like Max from Where the Wild Things Are as a character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense now. Like, you just had a huge imagination, and there's the berry thing I kind of enjoy. I do kind of enjoy that.
If you've read Island
fun.
at the end of everything, I based Army on Tom, and even used the berry game in that book. So yeah,
it makes total sense. Oh my gosh. So Julia in this one, and then is you, and then Tom's in Island at the end of everything. I love to see the reflections of real life in there. And then last one, and hopefully ending on an upbeat note for the icebreaker round. Tell me a moment from this past year that has really made you happy.
Oh, that is nice.
I'm a nice person.
I think probably. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go first?
You go first.
For me, it was probably meeting my friend's baby for the first time, and it was still during lockdown, so I wasn't allowed to hold him or anything. But then she was like beside herself, couldn't find something in her bag, and literally just handed him to me, and I just burst into tears. It was just so nice to hold him and like look at him close up, and even though I was trying to hold my breath and stuff, and it was just that was a really magical moment for me.
Oh, babies are just so cute anyway. Like, oh
God, yes. He is. I mean, my friends are having really cute babies. It's like excellent.
I think it was when we got a new. So we've already got one cat, Luna, and then we got a kitten called Marley, who's also a rescue cat. I think it was bringing Marley into our lives.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin's like, can I change my answer?
No. Marley is so Tom's cat as well. Like, she absolutely adores him. So.
Very territorial then.
Yeah.
Get away from him.
A little bit.
I mean, cats are the best anyway, so I totally get that. Literally. I wish I had asked more cat questions now. Never mind. At least I know you're cat people. Then I know that you're my people. So okay, so we've got those questions out of the way. Now it's time to get into Kiran and Tom as people. What got you here, the origin stories, everything that we need to know. And some How to Train Your Gavin exclusives will be amazing. So Kiran, I can start with you. How did you first want to be an author? And how did you know it was something you always wanted to be? Because did you mention like 7 books now? Like, you have had this like incredible kind of turnaround for how many books you've written in the past. So how many? Yes, it's been like 20.
5 I've been published now. I've been writing for 7 years. So.
Right. So for 7 years, so you weren't like writing as a kid or anything? Like, was an author kind of more recent?
I did write as a kid, but not only in the context of school. Like, I wouldn't sort of come home and, like Tom was saying, he'd come home and draw and stuff. I didn't really do that. Like, I liked more kind of role play games, like making my brother dress up as Princess Jasmine and like all that sort of stuff.
But you read vast amounts.
Yeah, like the thing I've always done is read voraciously, like devour books my entire life from a very young age. And then I was coming into my final year at university, and Tom and I were going out by then, and I was thinking, you know, what do I do now? Because I studied with the view of going into teaching, and then tried teaching and was like, I am not a teacher. Like, this is the hardest thing in the world.
It sounds like you're reading my life story at the minute, because that's why I went to uni. I thought I'll be a teacher too. No, at least I've got the kind of outlook of that. Oh, maybe I could be like Kiran Millwood Hargrave when I'm older.
Well, absolutely, you just do it better. And
Oh.
in my final year at uni, I was talking a lot to Tom about what I could do, and I thought maybe I'd go and do a law degree. And Tom bought me the entire T.S. Eliot shortlist, poetry prize shortlist, and I read it, and I was like, it really ignited something in me, and I thought, I want to write poetry. So I took a year out, which I needed to do anyway to work on my mental health, and started writing poetry and submitting it to magazines, and slowly built up a bit of publication record. That year came to an end, and I was feeling a bit better and sort of ready to move on, and applied to some creative writing courses. Ended up going to Oxford and writing The Girl of Ink and Stars as part of that course. So yeah, it's weird, because I feel like so many writers know they wanted to write from a young age, even if they didn't have the opportunities I've had to start so young. They knew that they wanted to from a really long time. So I, in a kind of way, felt for a long time I was doing catch up, because I knew I wanted to write for 10 years basically now, and that's nothing in terms of craft, and I feel like I'm learning all the time. So that was my journey up to writing my first book.
You're just not like other authors, Kiran. You're in a league of your own. You're on your own journey, your own path. But it's great, actually.
I like that, yeah.
It's great though, because I think it inspires a lot of people who maybe didn't start out as, wanting to be a writer, and then like later in life they can discover that, if that's something that they would love to do. So I think I do hear a lot like, oh yeah, I started writing as a kid and things like that. So you said you did for school and stuff, but it wasn't something you particularly pursued.
No, stories I've always loved reading, but not writing myself.
Interesting, your brother up is Princess Jasmine. Amazing. I wish I was your brother.
He probably wishes you were too.
Tom, did you have like a similar kind of path for you wanting to be an illustrator? How did you first become an illustrator, and where did it take you?
Well, I don't think as I kind of mentioned, from a young age, I was kind of always drawing lots of things and kind of creating whole worlds and I suppose stories and characters from that. And then I never necessarily thought of that as a career while I was at school, just because I was told you can't do art as a career. So actually at end of A levels, I was due to apply to Oxford to do physics, and I was like certain that was my kind of path. And then I suddenly just thought, actually, this isn't what I want to do. I just want to paint. So then it was a kind of an instinctive reaction just to go study art. And then, funnily enough, the illustration side, because I've been a professional artist for like 12, 13 years. I've never even thought really of the idea of illustrating a book. And then this project kind of just arrived, and it felt like something we had to do. So I suppose I'm coming at it as an artist in terms of, I normally make large scale paintings on canvas and films.
Show them your hands.
Oh, these are quite clean.
Oh my.
Well, that's clean.
And films and performances. So yeah, I hadn't ever necessarily consciously thought I would ever illustrate a book. So it's been a complete joy to have this project to work on.
I was going to say, I went on your website and I saw all the incredible pieces of art you've done, and it looks so brilliant. I've got a link to the website down below so everyone can check it out as well. But it's honestly I always admire how you can have something in your head and bring it out, whether it's being a writer or being an illustrator, and being able to kind of quantify it in a way and make it real. It can be like a fantasy in your head or something, but you've made it real. And just how you were told that art wasn't really a career, and you still made it happen. So again, that's incredible.
Thank you very much.
I'm here to inflate everyone's ego.
Yeah,
I like
loving this.
Good, because there's more to come. How did you two? You said that did you meet at Oxford? Is that where?
Cambridge we met. So I was in my first year at Cambridge, and Tom was artist in residence at Cambridge, and it was 2008 that we first met, so I was 18. And we basically, Tom did some artwork for a play that I was in. The title of the play and the character I was playing is unrepeatable, like even for a
Yeah.
Really?
it was a naughty play inspired by the Earl of Rochester writings. And Tom did some work, some art for that, which included painting a portrait of me, which is nice. So we met then, and then at the after party, basically Tom didn't want to go to the after party, and he got rained off his cycle home, so he came to the after party, and I basically pounced. Is the story.
You pounced, you were waiting.
I pounced. And here we are, 12 years later, so it worked.
I need to get some tips from you after the live show, yeah?
Yeah.
So why did it then take this amount of time to do a middle grade book together? Like, what was how did the idea for Julie and the Shark come to be? But like, why both of you working on this at the same time? Why now?
You can answer.
I think because we've collaborated before, but not on, well, obviously not on a middle grade book or not on books, but so we've had that experience of working together before, and I think
you both survived. Phew.
And we've survived with some bumps. But I think we kind of instinctively knew that at some point the right story would come along, and it felt really important that we weren't just shoehorning imagery into it. It needed to be a story in a world where imagery was offering something that words can't do, rather than just complementing them, or rather than just re-describing them. And we just kind of knew, didn't we? It was instantly, like the moment you kind of happened upon the idea, it just seemed like this is obviously the story we need to do together.
Yeah, we've been waiting like a really long time, ever since The Girl of Ink and Stars came out, for the right book. Because I think what we really wanted was to create this whole world together. We didn't want it to, as Tom said, just for the images just to show what the words are saying. We wanted the images to go beyond words, and that required a story with certain layers and a certain depths that I just didn't have that reach yet, or the urge to reach for that just yet. And Tom was busy with his own projects as well. So then when we came across the Greenland shark, and then the metaphor that the Greenland shark becomes in the book, it felt like the perfect sort of vehicle and sort of enmeshing of our interests. Because that was another thing, is we both wanted to be 50-50 enthusiastic about this. Like, I didn't want to just be bringing Tom on board with one of my ideas or going along with one of his. It needed to feel like we were both in this together.
A true collaboration. So
exactly.
It's not, as you said, it's not just words. And even when I read it as well, it's like that whole experience of the images do tell the story as well. And it's like, you can kind of, I don't think you could take the illustrations out and just read the story as it is. It feels like it's very needed and crucial for the kind of story that you are going for with Julie and the Shark. And it just adds more to the impact, I think. And there's definitely some parts that I'd love to chat about, like obviously without spoilers and things, but like I think at times when the words complement the illustrations and the illustrations complement the words. So for those who don't yet know, can you tell us what Julie and the Shark is about?
This is my job. I've been practicing for this.
You've got this down to a
T. Julia and the Shark is about a girl called Julia who moves up to the Shetland Islands in Scotland with her parents for the summer. They're there ostensibly so that her dad can program a lighthouse to make it work automatically. But her mum has a secret mission of her own. Her mum adores the Greenland shark, which is this almost mythic creature that can live for hundreds of years and is really elusive, not much seen or studied. And so Julia's mum becomes obsessed with finding the Greenland shark. And Julia has a journey of her own, not only sort of tugged in the wake of her parents' twin obsessions, but also her own discovery of this really special friendship that she develops with a local boy called Kin. And through him, she learns a lot about her own prejudices and about her own perceptions of the world, and sort of learns to expand them.
That is exactly how I'm going to try and describe it to people in the store now, because I that's like the perfect summary. And yeah, it just makes me want to reread it again. I mean, that's how much I want to read it again. How did the collaboration between you two work on Julia and the Shark? Did you have to like what was it that came first? Like, did you want to write the words first, the illustrations? Was it like, again, like you see this natural collaboration? Like, was it just all together? Like, what was the like talks like about this book?
I think we knew from the beginning how the shark was going to function, that it was going to serve this dual role of just, it's this incredible, almost mythic creature in terms of just the truth of it, the facts of it, the science. And so we wanted it, we knew there was going to be that kind of nature angle, but we also knew that it was going to be a potent metaphor for various things to do with mental health. And that meant that we knew from early on that the imagery would serve to kind of construct these psychological landscapes. But then in terms of the making of it, it therefore then felt important that Kiran mapped out the story first. So we kind of got a first draft in place of the words. And then I could take that first draft and start to kind of plot my way in visually. And then from there, it was kind of more a back and forth that both words and image started to inform each other. Yeah. So we started to see where there was kind of room within the words to expand open to images, and where the words needed some space of their own to build up a rhythm or to move through the narrative.
And the, you know, my first draft was quite long. It was sort of a standard middle grade book. It was about I think it was about 50, 60,000. And that shrunk. I think it's about 30 now. And that is completely the natural condensing that happens during the editing process, but also realizing that there were places where my words just couldn't reach. And they were the places where Tom's imagery, literally at the end of the book, there's a point where Tom's imagery takes over the story, and, you know, there are basically no words. So that was very exciting. I
was also going to say, just because I know everyone always says that books are made by lots of people, but this book felt particularly true because the whole team at Hachette, but like particularly we've had two editors. So particularly our editors, Helen and Rachel, and particularly our designer, Alison. We were so sure from early on that there would be probably this kind of reduction of ambition, that they might start to say, well, yeah, we want the images to do this, but, you know, let's shrink it down. And actually, throughout the whole process, they came on board with what we wanted to do, which is quite unusual in what it's doing for a middle grade book, like the scope of how the two are working together. And they just fully not only embraced it, but kind of contributed towards shaping the entire thing. And it was just so exciting that their collaborative efforts felt like they lifted the book up as opposed to kind of squishing it down.
Yeah.
Oh, I felt like maybe that could have hindered it somewhat, especially since like this is a vision that you two had. But the fact that Hachette in the designers, the editors had that vision alongside you guys, it sounds like it really did kind of boost it. And just seeing again like the final copy that you showed there with the illustrations and the tracing paper and all of that, it just sounds like
tracing paper is another tracing paper bit. Like, and you know, this was Alison coming to us with this idea. And, you know, publishers are so often on board with your ideas, but then don't have the means or the like ability to actually realize it. And I think actually the fact that this is better than anything we imagined is a real testament, because we were so ambitious with what we wanted this story to do, and they've really pulled out all the stops with this. I think this is definitely a book you're going to want to hold. I love an e-reader, like absolutely, but for me, like this, like needs to be held and like leafed through and seen. It's so beautiful. I know I'm biased, but like it's just the most beautiful thing.
Well, Kiran, your books are always so beautiful. I
Yeah.
have a copy of like The Mercies, The Death of the Skills, like The Way Past Winter as well, like all in hardback and things. And you just have like some of the most beautiful books like going. And like I'm wondering as well, like with this kind of being a book that you've collaborated with other people on, like was this one of the hardest books you've ever had to write? And that includes like your books for older readers. Like, did you have to go way out of your comfort zone in order to get Julian the Shark realized?
It's interesting because in some ways it was very, very challenging because the themes we're drawing on are things that are very close to home, mental illness, and this book in many ways it's both a letter to myself as a child and also I was imagining at the time a letter to myself as a mother. Like both past and future selves, and sort of living with a mental illness can feel so disorientating, and drawing some of those themes out, that was quite challenging. But actually Julia's voice came through so loudly in a way that I've not experienced since the island at the end of everything with Army. It was like she was speaking into my ear, and when that happens it's such a gift as a writer because even when you're sort of feeling like you don't want to go and write, you kind of just sit down and you channel. Like it was really there, and the real work came in that editorial process and condensing it down into this, as short as this story could be. Like it really felt like, I didn't want to overcomplicate it with plot. Obviously there's plot in this and it's an adventure story, but I didn't want it to be like, it's not like a twisty, turny book. It's like this, you dropped into this girl's head at this really pivotal point in her life, and then you're pulled out at the end. And that was kind of how I felt writing it as well.
Nice. And then Tom, I mean, you would have had to have tried to kind of get your vision along with Kiran's there, and it sounds like it was such a personal experience for Kiran to write this book. And I'm guessing it was probably a personal experience for you as well. But then this is your debut illustrating in a novel. So, like, how was that process, and was it different to anything you've done before?
I think really different to anything I've done before, and I was, to be honest, terrified of it to start with, just because I obviously think all Kiran's books are brilliant, but when reading the first draft of this, I just thought, well, this is something really special, and now I need to be able to do something that kind of, does justice to the words. And also because I'm used to working on projects where it's me building the entire world, where I'm in complete control of it. So handing over that control was quite scary. But actually, the moment I started making images, what was interesting is all these normal pretensions that are there in my head, and particularly kind of making stuff for an art world audience, all of that kind of noise basically fell away. And you're then able to focus on this, like trying to make this incredibly immersive book, thinking about this one-to-one experience between a child or an adult who's reading it, and the kind of intimacy and the depth of feeling that you want. And just realizing that all I need to do here is, if I can create that feeling, it's worked. And then similar to Kiran, that, it was drawing on, I suppose, thinking of myself as a child. Like, I think children are so often patronized with their view of the world. They completely get wonder and awe. They completely get psychological complexity. They understand metaphors. They're so aware of everything that's going around them and hyper tuned to it, in a way, because they've got potentially less distractions than when you become an adult. And I wanted to kind of try and get some of those complexities across, because I think they get them. And perhaps that sense of wonder or loneliness, fear, all those things you feel as a child very, very acutely.
Yeah. A lot of people do underestimate kids, I think, especially when it comes to middle grade and children's books. They think maybe some of the subject matter in books can be like a bit too tough for children, but I feel the opposite. Like, I think kids can handle so much, and they want to. Like, a lot of kids these days were growing up in a totally different world than what we did like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They need to be, aware of things that are going on. Before I ask Kevin the next question, Tom, do you remember the first ever illustration you did for Julie and the Shark, and did it actually make the cut as well? I just randomly thought that because I'm so interested to see if it did.
For the pitch, won't it?
Oh yeah, it's a version of the the cutout that you've got to your right, you know, the lighthouse.
Oh, yeah.
It's an early version of that that we did for the pitch of the book. So it did, you know, a version of it made it into the book, but I actually made something like 2,000 separate artworks in the process of making the book. And so vast sums obviously haven't made it in. And our poor designer who got sent these literally 2,000 files.
So this, this was like, it was a version of this image.
I love it.
But it's that one. And then there's one at the end, but that's a spoiler. So
okay, you can show me after because I've read it. Well, I guess that's perfect because the lighthouse, I think, is very symbolic to a lot of people, and it can represent so much. And Kiran, you mentioned how this book can, it handles like mental illness and like so many like tough issues. And as we mentioned, like kids can take a lot. They do need to know about these things in order to, I guess, sort of like prepare them, but also to feel seen and represented and to know of any signs in case they need to, know for themselves. So like, was it important to you to have that kind of representation for mental health? And why was it like Julie and the Shark that made that the book that you kind of put your kind of heart and soul into?
It's interesting because it did change quite a lot from the pitch to actually writing it. The pitch was a lot more a sort of, I suppose, traditional story. And then when I sat down with the original editor of the book, Helen Thomas, and talked it through, I realized that I was avoiding what this book actually needed to be about because it is about these tricky issues. And I'd read a couple of middle grade books that deal amazingly with these sorts of issues. One of my favorites is Aubrey and the Terrible Ute by Horatio Clare.
Yeah.
And I love how that book portrays, because these are things that children do experience, whether it's for themselves or through parents. And I think what's so important and empowering is to give them the language and to give them the, this isn't a shameful secret, because we all know that shame and secrecy is the worst thing around these sorts of issues. If you can actually give a child the language to talk and to ask for help or to speak adequately about their feelings, I actually think that would head a lot of issues off at the pass, if you like. Because I think that mental health was certainly in my parents' generation a secret, a dirty secret, a weakness. And it's really only our generation onwards who are starting to bring it into the light and say, these are real issues. They have real impact on people's lives. They need real solutions. And, Julia and the Shark is my very small contribution to opening that conversation up to the light, to the air, because in the dark, these things just really fester, I think.
And it's really interesting the way that the artwork along with it does help with that whole light in the darkness. And a part that I love, and I don't think it's spoiler, like there's lots of pages like towards the climax or during the climax where there's like a lot of darkness and like the pages are essentially black and you just don't know if there's like a way out of this, not just for Julia but for yourself as a reader. And then you'll suddenly turn the page and it's a white page and you're blinded by light in the darkness. And I love things like that, and I love the way like the process of that and the way that art really does kind of like bleed into the story so that you feel like you're part of it. So Tom, like with that segment, like what were your decisions behind some of those crucial moments of the book, and like how did you use art to convey those emotions? Like you're obviously like a really talented artist who's done this for such a long time now, but like what were your decisions behind like having this be a future in Julia and the Shark?
I think actually the first ever editorial meeting we had with Helen, and she said something along the lines of,
it was the Leonard Cohen lyric.
Yeah, whatever. It's the Leonard Cohen lyric, and it's not quite this, but it's like the wound or the crack.
There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Yeah, that's it. And it was so interesting because I thought we were going to go to a meeting and it was going to be so focused on kind of narrative drive and plot and structure. And like what she got straight to was the thematic heart of it, and was basically like, look, do that and the book will work. And then almost like then the plot will take care of itself. So then when I was reading Kiran's first draft, I think very quickly I realized that if narrative kind of takes you through horizontally through time and space. So you're going from A to B. That what I needed the images to do would be these moments that went in the opposite direction, that went vertically. So you might have a single image or a single page, but then suddenly you want it to convey something where like the whole world kind of opens up. So it has those moments that we all feel in life,
plunging,
like
those highs,
or something that's like vertiginous, and like those moments of kind of rupture in your life where something big happens, and suddenly time doesn't move along in a logical order. It's, you know, those moments take on a scale. So I wanted, you know, in the space, I think I wanted to make the book feel a little bit like an accordion. So there were these, you move through pages with a rhythm, and then you come to a page with a double page processing of images, and then that kind of goes and opens up, and it feels like something you can fall into.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100% agree with that. It did feel like such an emotional journey, but like visually, like emotionally, it was something that was, I don't, I wish I could have read something like this when I was a kid. I think it would have helped me to understand a bit more about like the emotions of other people, in like kind of empathy and understanding of how other people are in the way that we treat people as well. So like, even with all of these darker themes in the book, you guys do make this rather uplifting, and there is like so many like morals and messages to learn from it. What do you personally hope that readers will take away from Julia and the Shark when they read it? And it can be like they're probably the same for both of you or different for both of you, but is there something in particular that you're like, yeah, I want readers to read this, and at the end, I want them to feel something?
I think that, I suppose, particularly thinking for children who are reading it, to know that things can feel kind of huge and overwhelming, and that can be overwhelming with wonder or beauty or with fear or loneliness. But to know that even in the kind of darkest depths, there's always a moment of light, like that things will normally be okay, and not to feel lonely, that everyone feels these big feelings. It's perfectly natural.
Yeah, that I really want children to get to hear this book and think it's okay. And also, I think something that Julia does that a lot of children do, I know I did, and I see it in my eldest niece, and is that they often take on responsibility for their parents' feelings. And actually, it's so important for children to be allowed to be children, and be allowed to be their own people, and not just become sort of like they feel the weight, they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they have to worry about things. And you know, and I think that is a sign of real care and kindness. But also, I really want, you know, if a child reading this book who is in a similar situation to Julia, I would want them to come away from this book thinking, this isn't my responsibility, this isn't my fault, I'm allowed to be my own person and to not worry, basically.
And you can speak to people as well, because we do have like secondary characters in this book that I think Julia sometimes doesn't always like know how to express herself or her situation. But yeah, I guess as well, like, was that a purposeful thing as well, actually, like having secondary characters in here who felt a bit crucial to Julia's journey herself?
Absolutely. It felt so important that the secondary characters were on their own journeys, and that, you know, Julia does damage in this book. She does damage because she lacks empathy at certain points, and she can't see things from other people's point of view. Another thing that was very much sort of one of my characteristics is, well, I'm right. Like, you know, and she learns from Kin. She learns even from the bully in this book, you know. And I think it's so important to teach children that they can change their minds and they can evolve and grow, and children are doing that constantly anyway. But I think it's a time of such vast change, you know, when you go from primary to secondary school, and you're like bombarded by all these emotions and all these things, external and internal, and just to sort of say, you know, you're still finding yourself, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to be this set fixed thing from the moment you sort of step into secondary school. You can sort of find your people and find yourself.
Well, what I love about Julia is that, yeah, she doesn't always make the best decisions or anything, but you can always see her heart is in the right place. Like, she thinks she's doing what's right because that's what her heart is kind of telling her. So it's also like great to like listen to your heart, but also have those kind of moments where you reflect and think, is this the right thing for everyone, or is this just something that I feel like I need to do? And I think that's like such a fantastic like look at that in the book as well. What is your best memory then, looking back on the entire experience of Julian the Shark, from when you first thought of it to, you know, it being right here in front of us? What is the best memory you've had from the entire experience working together?
I mean, for me, it would be like literally holding it for the first time, because it's, I mean, you get that with any book, but this, you know, this was ours, and to have made something together that we're so happy with as well. And so it's done exactly what we want it to do. That's such a satisfying feeling. But I think the other big moment for me was when we got the publishing deal and we were like, we're actually going to be able to do this. Like, our idea is actually good and we're actually going to be able to make something together. That was so exciting.
I think mine was, Kiran had written the first page, and as she mentioned earlier, like she got the voice was kind of in her head like instantly. And I was a bit nervous to read it because I knew that this book was going to be very different to anything she'd written before. And I'm obviously biased, but I think she's a genius. Like, but there was still this like, what if this is just fine, or you know, or not good, or like. And it was just from like line one, I was like, oh, she's got the voice at this. I could just, like, Julia was just suddenly like that stood in front of me, kind of complete and full. And I just kind of, at that point, I was like, okay, this is going to be really exciting. And that first page is still basically in there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah.
I bet not a lot had to change all that much. I mean, other than like the words being condensed and cut down and stuff, like every single book Kiran's ever done has been beautiful. Like, yes, this is like totally different to everything as well, but at the same time, you can see the poeticism, I guess, like throughout Kiran's works. It's just, you can see it in everything, and you can just tell this has like a distinct Kiran flavor. And it just made even better with, you know, Tom's illustrations. It's like, this is like the perfect combination of two worlds coming together and just blessing the world.
There's not going to be room for our heads in the shot soon. It's like
good. good. I mean, I owe you guys for like doing so much for me. So it's like, this is like my way of thanking you guys for just one, writing such an incredible book, two, just being at my beck and call whenever you guys are there.
Always.
Can you condense everything into one thing and tell me one thing that you're most proud of with this book? And is it each other? Because, oh, that's sweet.
The thing I'm most proud of with this book is that we set out to do something together, and it's turned out greater than the sum of its parts. I think, yeah.
I think it's not so it's just probably the collaboration, isn't it? And a sense that now it feels like the door's been opened and there's a lot, it feels like there's quite a few stories waiting.
Well, I mean, I'll ask this in a second because I do hope there's going to be more, but Julian the Shark comes out, well, it's 18th of August as we're filming this, so 2 or 3 weeks, September 2nd, like there's a few weeks still to go. How are you guys feeling about, I mean, Tom, you already mentioned you're rather like nervous but excited, but like, how are you feeling about the release? Are you doing anything for it? Are you celebrating with like family and friends? Like, what's going on there? And where's my invite?
We are we're on a book tour up to Scotland and then back down into Oxford and London. What's the first bit of the question? How do I feel about it?
Yes,
I think
you said nervous and excited, but you know,
I think in some ways I'm excited for that moment. That, you know, the second it's out, it's not yours anymore. It's the readers, and all you can hope for really is that it finds its readers. And again, like, it's kind of thanks to our publishers, thanks to this kind of whole industry, which particularly for middle grade books, there just seems to be this such supportive community of booksellers, teachers, librarians, other authors. And you just hope it finds its people, and I think it's going to be given every chance. So
I think I feel kind of giddy about feeling part of that community. Like, obviously that community never went away, but we're still not fully back to normal, are we? But this will be our first taste of slight normality, going to Edinburgh Book Festival, doing an event with actual people in the audience. These are things that actually make me feel quite emotional to consider that those points of connection are starting to come back. So that's the main thing for me, is sort of excitement, and obviously always huge nerves, but we've kind of done all we can do at this point, and it's really up to readers now. And to celebrate, we're having like a few like friends and family just to our garden the week of the launch, and just sort of raise a glass, because obviously launches are sort of off the cards at the moment, but looking forward to them being back. Can't wait for my warm glass of wine in a bookshop.
But we're thinking, aren't we, that we'll do
a
kind of a more classic big public facing launch around the paperback, just because I'm aware that some people quite rightfully are still feeling quite nervous about things, and you don't want people to feel kind of compelled to come to something. So but loads and loads of book signings, and
we'll be definitely keep an eye out on our Instagram and Twitter, because we'll be sharing, like, if you want dedicated copies, you can go to certain bookshops. Obviously, Gavin, like, if there's anyone at your bookshop who needs anything, just let us know. So
Yay. Oh my god, that sounds amazing. I do have your links to Instagram and Twitter in the description box as well, so people can check all of that out. I know I will. I'll be asking all of the favors. It's all good. So you said that this was an incredible experience for both of you. Would you consider doing another one in the future? Maybe.
We are actually working on something that we can't talk about. So we can't talk about it. Tom's like,
I want to.
So I'm nearly done with the first draft of that, and then it will get handed over to Tom. And so watch this space. And Tom's working on some really exciting secret stuff that he can't talk about and I can't talk about, but that I am vicariously living for.
I am too.
It's book related.
Okay, good. Okay, awesome. I mean, even if you were doing like more artworks and exhibitions and all of that still would have been fantastic. But I love the fact that we get to keep your illustrations in book form in a book. So like more book illustrations, please, in the future. That would be awesome. We can keep them on our shelves and all of that. So that would be cool. So it's great that you're doing more artworks and things. Kiran, are you doing more middle grade, more young adult, more adult around this collaboration too?
So I have another adult book coming out next year, and then I have a really exciting project with Hachette as well after that. I hate publishing that you can't just like say, but I can't say yet, but that's all coming. And Tom has his writing debut coming out in March.
Writing debut?
Yeah.
I did.
Go on, do your little pitch.
Oh God, I've not even ever done it before. This will be the first time ever.
This is amazing.
I've got a book coming out with Granta called Wreck, Jericho's Raft and the Art of Being Lost at Sea.
Snappy.
It's a narrative non-fiction, and it's part memoir, so it's about my obsession with Jericho's painting The Raft of the Medusa. But it's also in part about the story of this collaboration I've been doing for the last 4 years with a writer from Syria who lost his sight to a bomb blast in 1997. And so, it's kind of very much connected to the stuff that's been happening in the studio as well. But that is just terrifyingly out next March.
Soon.
Very soon, yeah.
I was going to say, like, it's no time at all until that comes out. Like, before we know it, the paperback of Julian the Shop will be out, and then
that's April, so really soon.
Ooh. You've actually got 2 big things back to back, then, Tom. Like, that's
and then my adult book's out in May, so it's going to be May.
When are you guys having a break? Like, is there any kind of break?
Oh, we manage. Don't worry about us. We manage.
Good. I do worry, because I think put your feet up, get yourself a tea, and just do all the things that you need to do outside of writing. But that is like, I mean, I got some How to Train Your Gavin exclusives there, so I'm really happy about that. Really excited about all the things that are coming out in the future. Tom, is there a pre-order link for that or anything like that I can put in the description box for your
Ooh.
release? Do you
Not,
know?
not yet.
There's a description link, but not a pre-order link yet, I think, isn't there?
I don't
So
think it's gone live yet.
No, I don't think it's live yet,
Okay.
sadly. But I think there's probably
If we
grant
find
link.
it, we'll send it to
Yeah.
you.
Yes, please. Or I mean, I'm a little good detective. I could probably try and find something. And I'll just pop that in the description box as well so people
Thank
can
you.
find it. But yeah, that was my interview with Kiran Millwood Hargrave and Tom de Freston. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything you want to say to the viewers at home or anything before we head off?
Just thank you so much. That was such an amazing interview. It's so fun.
Yeah, it was so lovely, and we can't wait to like hopefully be talking to as many people as possible in these weird times allow. And it's lovely to have got to do this event with you before the official launch. So thank you very much.
I'm so excited that I got to do this with you guys, and I tried to keep it. I mean, we did do it spoiler free, so I feel like we did a good job at that. No spoilers here, which makes it harder to talk about because I just want to talk about everything. But no, I feel like we did a great job. So pat on the back for us, amazing. Yeah. So yeah, all the links are down in the description box for anyone watching who wants to buy Julia and the Shark. You can get from all good available bookshops, and yeah, all the social media links down the description box too. It's where you'll find everything. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next In Conversation With episode. Bye everyone.